Good morning. My name is Michael Bouchard. Welcome to Kensington Church live stream. We're so glad that you joined us this morning. I'm our Student Ministries Director, and I got a couple of announcements to give you for today. First of all, I want to let you know that tonight we have, for parents, we have a faith and family stream. And you can find out more about that on our website. But we have that. I think you might be streaming on Facebook tonight, 8:30. So make sure you tune in. Also, next week we have our football week. That's right. We have our world famous football week here at Kensington. It's an awesome, fun program, fun weekend, and a lot of prizes, a lot of games. So we want to make sure that you tune in and join us. Also, we have something that happens after every service. We have our hangout that is on our Facebook page. So you can go check out our Facebook groups and hang out with us and talk with other people regarding the service today. And our kids program wanted to make an announcement for those who are in person or who are thinking about coming in person. Starting next week, we will also be launching our kids program for both services, not just one, but for both. And so we also wanted to invite any high schoolers or middle schoolers that are watching, or any parents of high schoolers and middle schoolers. We have our program every Sunday night. So we have it tonight, 5 o'clock for middle school and 6:30 for high school. We got Craig speaking today. He's talking about baptisms, and we're going to be sharing some highlights from this last weekend. So stay tuned, have a seat, and enjoy what God has for us today.
Good morning. On behalf of the whole Kensington community, I want to welcome you. We're so glad you've chosen to join us this morning, whether you're here in person or with us online. I'm Ryan Morrill, the Kensington Kids Director at the Orion campus, and I want to invite you to two upcoming opportunities that I'm pretty excited about. The first is tonight, and no, it's not too late to join. We're hosting another free online faith and family event to encourage parents, specifically parents of boys. So join us at 8:30 p.m. tonight for Raising Godly Boys. I will be hosting a panel of experts that include author Mike McCormick and his wife Christy, author and nurse practitioner Dr. Jen Salerno, as well as Devanyu and Liz Banks. Devanyu serves on our elder board. Let's lean in together on how to help our boys grow into godly men of character, integrity, and confidence. Go to kensingtonchurch.org/faith and family to register for this free event. The second is next weekend service, Football Sunday! At Kensington, the sports references come naturally, maybe because there are a lot of diehard Lions fans out there. Raise your hands. During the big game weekend, we paused from a typical series to celebrate amazing stories from different players in the NFL. Instead of doing our own teaching, we show an incredible high-impact video hosted by Coach Tony Dungy and former NFL player Benjamin Watson. We will also hear from players from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs. Here's a little bit of what next weekend will look like.
This is Sam Macho.
This is Carson Wentz.
Brandon Cooks.
And I'm excited to share my story.
During Football Sunday.
Football Sunday 2021.
This year has been unlike any other year for all of us.
But in the middle of the uncertainty,
there's a unique opportunity for us all to experience
the faithfulness of God.
Because when the ground is shifting and the world is rumbling,
God is always inviting us into something that cannot
and will not
ever be moved.
Football Sunday 2021.
Release hope,
Unlock potential.
be unshaken.
This is the perfect service to invite someone to, especially that sports fan who's been a little reluctant about church. Okay, so let's head back to our service now. We're in the 5th and final week of the last arrow. It's been a really powerful series to focus on as we start the new year. I've been mulling over this idea that we can save, hoard, hide, or we can give all that we have and live every second. Let's live that way, shall we? Today's service is titled The Release, so let's discover together what that means for our lives. Thank you for joining us.
Well, good morning, Kensington. Let's all stand up as we worship Jesus this morning. Darkness run and hide, you bring the broken back to life. Only you can. You set me free from every chain, you fill my heart with songs of praise. Only you can. Jesus, you're the only reason that I'm even breathing. I am wide awake. My heart beats only for your glory. My hands reach up for you to hold me. My soul sings, Father, you are holy. My feet dance to your rhythm, to your rhythm. Every beat is calling out your name. You left the glory of your throne to bring this runaway back home. Only you can. You give me love, you give me life, you keep me dancing through the night. Only you can. Oh, my heart beats only for your glory. My hands reach up for you to hold me. My soul sings, Father, you are holy. My feet dance to your rhythm, to your rhythm. Every beat is calling out your name. Yeah. Oh, every beat is calling out your name. Oh, yeah. Oh, we sing Jesus, you're the only reason that I'm even breathing. I am wide awake. You move me, your freedom is consuming. I feel it rushing through me. I'll never be the same. Oh, my heart beats only for your glory. My hands reach up for you to hold me. My soul sings, Father, you are holy. My feet dance to your rhythm. Every beat is calling out your name. Yeah. Oh, every beat is calling out your name. Oh, every beat is calling out your name. Yeah. I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. Yeah. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. Come on, just you sing. I needed you. Come on. When I was broken, you were my healing. Now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future. My eyes are open. Just when you call my name. Oh, I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. Oh.
I was almost tempted to come up here and start hopping with you. Dang, Matthias has got some ups. Look at that. Jeez. Let me see it again. How high can you go? Good morning. Welcome to week 5 of what I think has been an incredible series. I hope this has been good for you and food to your soul, as I've been saying the last couple of weeks. So we are week 5, all January long, 5th arrow, and here we go wrapping it up. And this, I think, in so many regards, is going to be the best of all the weeks as we celebrate baptisms in just a little bit of time. So if you're joining us for the first time, whether online or in person, let me just tell you really quickly, this series that we have been in has been every week of the month of January. It has been slightly based off of a book called The Last Arrow, just like this series, written by a guy named Erwin McManus. McManus is an author, he is a pastor, he's a friend of Kensington. He's been here a number of times over the years. For me personally, for many years, though he would not know me from anybody, he has been one of those sort of distant kind of mentors of mine, as I have watched not just him as a pastor, but him as a person and a follower of Jesus, and just really found his life benefiting mine. So it's been so exciting for me to be able to be in this series that really has been shaped in many regards by him, that has been shaping to me, and I think now has been, at least to agree for so many of us, has been shaping in our lives. So The Last Arrow, let me explain it if you're just joining us this way. Whether you're a hunter or not, I am. Imagine yourself going out into the woods with a bow and one arrow. You would make every decision in those woods drastically different than if you went out with a quiver full. Where you put yourself, the blind you chose, the decisions you made, everything would be much more intentional, methodical, measured, weighed. If you had one arrow, you would make your choices differently. There is a truth in the scriptures that we all know, whether or not you're a follower of Jesus or even if you're checking out church for the first time, we know this, but I think sometimes the weight of it is lost on us. Our life is one arrow. That's it. We have one. And yet so often we can go through our days captivated by so many other things that we forget to do what this whole series has been about, which is living life to the fullest by making the most of every opportunity God gives us. So at the beginning of the series, if you remember, if you were with us, I said on week 1 that for all that it feels like 2020 kind of stripped away from us, I had a sense and a desire that 2021, no matter the challenges it may uniquely present itself, was a year I wanted to start taking back some of the sense of loss that 2020 took. And here's what's been so exciting. I feel like there's so many of you here that are believing that with me. Let me give you just a little bit of a picture of just the last couple of weeks for us as a community, for the Orion campus the last few weeks, and some of the things that we have experienced. For example, how about today and the fact that we're celebrating baptisms in the middle of a pandemic? When there could be so many reasons for people to say, no, not right now. I mean, it was different. We had to film them last Saturday at a pool where people had to be behind glass to watch it. I mean, it was a completely different experience, and it would have been so easy for people to say, no, I'm not going to do it. There's just too many barriers. And yet, across all of our campuses, people just poured out all afternoon long to come and make a profession that they believe out loud with their life in their mouth that there is a God, his name is Jesus, and he is wildly passionate about us. and no pandemic is getting in the way of that. Like, that's incredible. And that's all Kensington campus wide. Let me tell you a little bit about us and some of the things that's been so cool to watch as Orion just in the last couple of weeks. For example, we have probably, on a conservative estimate, about 2,000 or more people tuning in every week online. That's you, watching us every week online and tuning in and being a part of this community. Matter of fact, here's what's so cool. At the baptisms last Saturday, I met a young girl. You'll see her in the video later on this morning getting baptized and sharing a bit of her story that's never physically been in one of our buildings. She started attending online, lives in Grand Rapids, and drove down here last week to be baptized because this is her place. These are her people, right? Wow, isn't that incredible? So for all the things that we could even say have become barriers to us in this last year, God has turned them into opportunities and has expanded our impact and our reach. Our groups are the same way. Across our campuses, we're seeing people connect, even though it would be easy to say, I don't want to connect, I don't like looking at Zoom and screen time, and yet our groups are growing, relationships are growing, people are pouring in, getting more involved as a part of groups, as a part of serving, as a part of Alpha, and all kinds of opportunities. People are responding to relationship as Jesus and the community prompts them to do so, in the middle of all the barriers that could otherwise have us do very different. Then there's the fact that we've also seen an incredible amount of people beginning to return back and step in as well. Not just online, but also here in the building and saying, all right, now I'm coming back and I'm engaging in ways here and serving and investing and being a part of it. Our student ministries, we're watching them grow. And not just grow, but we're seeing new leaders emerge in our students. We're seeing new energy. We're seeing new passion. And our kids ministry. I don't know if you know this, but last week, our K Kids maxed out at capacity. So some of you may know this already, but if you don't, this is very exciting. Next week, we're going to start opening up K Kids for the second service at 11 o'clock again. So now we'll have K Kids at 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock. That's good. That's exciting. And so here's what was so cool. I'll tell you this even. Last week, I had the opportunity to go back and spend the morning with K Kids because Drew was here speaking on Sunday morning, so I was just kind of hanging out in the first service and wandering around and watching, and I haven't had a chance to do that yet since I've been here at Orion, and it was unbelievable. I mean, the volunteers we have back there, the leaders we have back there. I stood at one room, and I actually had this really cool moment. So my story is when I was 5 years old, I was sitting in a classroom much like the ones that we have back there. Mrs. Jessie, every week, sweet old Mrs. Jessie was the one that led that room and put up with us obnoxious little 5-year-olds. And I'll never forget the one Sunday where for some reason, I think God's divine hand just reached down and unlocked my heart to him. And I'll never forget that. I remember that, and I had this moment even standing back there and watching those rooms be led, and particularly Alicia, who was leading the room at the time and teaching, and I just thought to myself, destinies are being shaped in this room. Futures are being formed in these rooms. So I would even invite you, if you want to be a part of that and want to be involved, especially as we're opening up the second service K-Kids, we could totally use some volunteers and some men and women that want to invest and pour themselves into our kids. So if you're interested in that, just go back to the hub today and they can kind of guide you through what to do. But here's the bottom line. There's an energy and a momentum that I feel since the new year began that's not oblivious to the struggles that are around us, but an energy that says, and a momentum that says, we want to be the kingdom come to earth for Jesus. We want to be it with one another, and we want to be it in the world around us. And the only thing that can stop that momentum is, frankly, the only thing that can continue to grow it. It's you and I. It's us. I want to take you back to the verse that we started in for this whole series. It's going to be where we're going to end. It won't be our main text for the morning, but it's what launched this series for us here, and it's how I want to wrap it up. This is the Apostle Paul in the Bible, who wrote a letter originally to a church that he had started in the region of Ephesus. In the Bible, it is the book of Ephesians, chapter 5. Paul says this, "Now this is why it is said, 'Wake up, sleeper, and rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you.' Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise." And he gives description to the difference between wisdom and the lack of it. And he says, here's wisdom, verse 16, "Making the most of every opportunity." Why? Because the days are evil. There is a sense that Paul writes to say, wake up. Why? Because so many of us are sleeping through this life. We are sleeping through our days, and the evilness of them is robbing us of the opportunities God made us for. There are reasons God made you for. There are relationships God made you for. And here's the reality as well. There'll be a day that they're gone. See, in this passage, when Paul says, make the most of every opportunity, the original part of this Bible is written in the Greek language, and the phrase that's used there is actually exagorazo. And that word, here's what's so important about it, because this is where I think the Bible and sometimes understanding some of the language, even just a little bit, is both powerful and also a little sobering. Because that word, what it means is it carries with it a sense of taking back, buying out, even liberation. Like it literally is the kind of word you would use in reference to a move to buy back and free out a slave from captivity, to unleash them. So here's really what Paul, I think, is saying. The opportunities that God has made us for aren't just like sitting on the counter waiting for you to choose one day to come get them. They've already been robbed from us. And it's up to us to take them back. And so I've been asking that we would start every day somehow throughout the course of this series and this month with a simple prayer to lay that desire out before God, that he would help us be those people. Saying, God, align my heart with your heart, that I would live in and live out your purposes for me. So I've had you here at Orion every week do this, and if you're watching online for the first time and tuning in, I'm gonna ask you to just maybe put your prayer hands on the screen. Let us know you're doing this with us. If you're in the room, would you do just like we've been doing? Would you stand to your feet? We're gonna put this prayer on the screen, and I'm just gonna ask you for a moment, if this is your desire, then would you just pray this out loud with me? Here we go. Jesus, cultivate my heart to care about the things you care about and to let go of the things that you don't. If you'll just stay standing for a minute, let me pray for us. Father in heaven, I'm just thankful to be able to be here to celebrate you, to be with one another, to hold one another up in the midst of a crazy time we live in. And God, I pray that in all that we do today, what we would do more than anything else is we would hold up Jesus. We would hold him up as our hope, as our King, as our Savior, as our Father. I pray, God, that you would draw our hearts to yours this morning, whether we are convinced that you exist or whether we're trying to figure that out today. I pray that somehow you would meet us all in only the way you can, exactly where we're at right now. And I pray this, and we ask this in Jesus' name. And God, we also pray right now for next week and all the very disappointed Tom Brady fans that there are going to be, that you would begin now to comfort their hearts in the loss they will face. Amen. All right. Oh, really? I'm not even going to go there. All right. Hey, one of the things that is a value of ours as a community is to really begin to invest everything we are into the mission of Jesus. And one of the ways that we do that is financially. And I just want to, as always, I just want to thank you guys so much. Just continue to be blown away at the generosity of Kensington and Orion and our whole community as you just open your hands up to the mission. I say this all the time. I'm going to always say it. These moments where we receive our offering, they're not about money. They're all about mission for us. So if you're just joining us physically, we don't pass anything these days, probably pretty obvious reasons why, but you can still text in or go to our website, or probably the easiest is even go to the app. If you really want, outside these doors, before you walk out either into the building, there's gonna be buckets if you wanna drop something in physically. So thank you very much for that. So quick story on bow hunting, and some of you won't be surprised about this because you're a bow hunter. If you're a bow hunter, then you know that one of the important tools in bow hunting is a tool called a release. Straps around your wrist, or there's handheld ones. It's a thumb release. This is the one I use. I like a trigger release. But the purpose of the release is to replace your fingers on the string. So you open it up, you clip it on, and you pull it back, and you get yourself all the way back, and it's this simple little step right there that releases. But the release isn't just an item. The release is a moment as well. It's the moment that you actually do this, and you pull back, and you pull the trigger, and you release all that pent-up energy, all that pent-up potential, and you let that arrow fly. Now, here's what's cool, and here's what I think applies actually not just to bow hunting, but to our lives. When you pull back the bow at full draw, it's called, there's a mechanism in most modern compound bows called the let-off that allows, once you're full draw, for you to hold that weight because it's reduced from what it took to pull back. So for example, if you have a 60-pound bow with a 75% let off, when you pull that back and get it full draw, it's like holding 15 pounds instead of the 60 that it required to pull back. So the purpose is probably pretty obvious. What's the purpose? Anybody? to help you hold it longer. Right. You can stay at full draw holding 15 pounds a lot easier than you can stay at full draw if you were holding 60 pounds, which gives you more time to make micro adjustments, get on target, do what you need to do when you're at full draw. Here's the problem. While it enables you to stay at full draw longer, it doesn't enable you to stay there indefinitely. Because eventually your muscles are going to start to tire and fatigue. And the longer you stay at full draw, the greater the potential that when you finally do release, that you're going to make a mistake or even miss the target altogether. And I think that that's true in life as well. Matter of fact, let me ask you this. Have you ever held on to something too long that you should have let go of? A couple of years ago, my wife and I went on a cruise with some friends. And coming up to the cruise, if you've been on a cruise, they do these nights where there's fancy dinner nights. And so she decided, I have to have a new dress for a fancy dinner night. Now, I'm probably like typical guy out there. I'm like, babe, you have like a million dresses. Like, why do you need a new dress? She's like, no, honey, I really need a new dress. I'm like, sweetheart, you don't need a new dress. You have some dresses that I love. They're great. You have beautiful dresses. You have tons of dresses. And then she showed me the picture of the dress, and I was like, you need that dress. Yes, we're going to get that dress. So she finds it at a local store in our area at the mall. And so she's like, hey, date night, let's go get the dress. I'm like, all right, let's go get the dress. So we go to the mall, and we're looking all around, and she can't find it anywhere, like not in her size at least. And she's like, they're either too big or it's not the right color, so she just can't find it. We're just about to leave, and she's all disappointed. And she looks over, and she sees these two mannequins side by side. And one of them's got the dress on. And she goes, I wonder if that's my size. I was like, I don't know. You want to go see? So we go over there, and she rolls down the back of the dress, and sure enough, it's her size. Now, I say this often, and maybe you've heard me say something like this before, maybe you haven't, but people tend to think that because of what I do here on the stage, that I must just be like this bubbling, extroverted personality off the stage. Not necessarily. I have a tendency to be way too self-conscious of what people think of me sometimes, a little bit more introverted, socially weird at times, and in moments like this, bring all of that to the surface. Because I'm thinking, I'm gonna go find help. Now, my wife, who is everything I just said I'm not, bubbly, outgoing, super extrovert, she's like, I'm just gonna take it off. So she goes over, and I kid you not, she just starts shimmying the dress down. And there's a point where this is where she's at. She's down on the ground shimmying it, and I'm standing there. Now, mind you, picture this, there's all the clothes racks around. So she just disappeared. I'm standing there in the middle of the women's department, staring at a naked female mannequin as people are walking by and do not see my wife, and I'm getting all kinds of weird looks. Then it gets weirder because she says, babe, I'm gonna need you to pick it up. Because at the bottom, there's that like post that goes up the heel, and she can't get the dress. I don't know why she didn't take it up, she went down. But she's like, I'm gonna need you to pick it up. I'm like, I'm not picking it up. She goes, pick it up. I'm like, doggone it. So I looked for the clear, and I grabbed that thing, and I picked it up. Now, here's the funny thing. I don't know if you've ever found yourself in a moment of holding a naked mannequin. If you have, we need to talk. But I'm holding it, and it wasn't heavy, but it was heavier than I expected. So I grabbed it at the waist, and suddenly it slipped down. I'm holding it where I shouldn't be holding it, staring it right in the eyes. Like, hey, how are you? How are you? And now there's people coming by looking, going, what in the world? I'm not lying. There was a mom with probably a 5-year-old that walked in with her daughter, saw me, and just did this. Walked right out of that store, and still she's on the ground. So now I'm sweating bullets. I'm nervous. People are staring at me. They're walking by. All they see is this weirdo holding a female mannequin with no clothes on. And now she's like, okay, put it back on the post. And I'm trying to get that thing on the post. And so now this is all people see. And then there's a guy who comes walking in. I can't make this up. He starts shouting, that guy's taking the clothes off of that mannequin. I'm like, I'm out of here. That's it. Finally, I think I broke the heels. I just jammed it down, and we ran. And she's like, should I still buy the dress? I'm like, you better buy the dress after all of that. I don't know why there wasn't a moment that I thought to myself, I should just release this thing. Let it go. But I didn't, and I held on way too long. So let me ask you again. Have you ever held onto something that you should have released a lot sooner? But have you done it and it hasn't created a funny moment? Like, have you held on too long to a habit that you should have let go? Have you held on too long to an idea, to a job, to a relationship, to a hurt? to your own detriment. Held on too long and you should have let go. The whole series long, what we've been looking at is the idea that to fully wake up to the plans and to the purposes that God has made us for means letting go of certain things in life that would threaten us to stay asleep instead of to wake up. But we could get to the end of this series and never talk about the one most crucial, important thing for us to let go of. And it's our lives. The very essence of who we are let go of into the reckless, trusting abandonment to Jesus. So here's the story I want to take us to. It comes out of the book of Matthew. This is not going to be an unfamiliar story for some of you. For some of you, it may be new, but it is one of the most probably iconic stories and miracle moments of Jesus that was recorded. But I don't want to look so much as the moment of miracle as what it was that preceded that. And particularly, even some of what isn't directly written in the text, but was part of what was happening in the moment. And I want to look at how this is a moment of release. And a moment that in so many ways is a picture of everything about what today in the baptisms are and why we celebrate them and why they are so sacred. Matthew chapter 14, verse 22 says this. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. And after he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. And later that night, he was there alone. And the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. And shortly before dawn, Jesus went out walking on the lake. And while the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and they cried out in fear. Now, the Bible contains 4 particular books. I know some of you know this, but some may not, called the Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They are the books that exclusively deal with the life, the teachings, and miracles of Jesus, the movement of Jesus on this earth. And because there's different books, sometimes you get different perspectives, not contradicting perspectives, but a fuller picture. Like some will see in a detail that maybe others didn't witness. Some will remember a detail that maybe others, for whatever reason, just negated. And this is one of those moments. There is a detail here that Matthew does not include, that Mark includes, and I think it's so important to understanding the nature of God and what it means for us to be released to him. Here's what we read in the book of Mark. Same story, same moment. Mark chapter 6 says this, verse 48. Then he saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. And shortly before dawn, he went out to them walking on the lake. Now watch this. He was about to pass by them. Matthew didn't include that detail. He was about to pass by them, but when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought it was a ghost and they cried out. I want to make something abundantly clear about Jesus. Jesus is not just sitting back with kind of a sad depression on his face and in his look, waiting for enough people to join his team so that when his army's big enough, then he can accomplish his purposes in the world. The scriptures say that if we will not praise him, the rocks will do it. God is not waiting back, going, man, I just sure hope enough people come and help me out because I can't get anything done without them. I think the opposite is true. God is on the move. God is accomplishing his purposes, and he's inviting you and I to be a part of that. His kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. He's saying, I want you to join this, but he is on the move. And here's the danger. If we don't pay attention, we risk what they potentially risk, which is missing an opportunity to join him as he passes on by. Matter of fact, one of my favorite verses in the Bible comes out of the book of Matthew. Chapter 11, verse 12 says this. This is Jesus talking at one point after he's found out that his cousin is about to be beheaded because he's in prison. John chapter 11, verse 12 tells us, and from that time, John the Baptist began preaching, until now, the kingdom of heaven has been, say it, what? And violent people are attacking it. That's not passive. That's not sitting back. That's not just waiting for somebody else to tell it what to do. Jesus is on the move. Jesus is active, and he's inviting you and I to be involved. And I think sometimes our churches are full of men and women that go, how come I don't get the opportunities I see other people get? How come it seems like God does incredible things in them and incredible things through them? That's because there are some of us that choose to let him walk on by and don't realize that he is moving and inviting us to be a part of that movement. Like, have you ever made a decision in life purely out of the fear that you were going to miss out if you didn't? What do we call that? Help me out. FOMO. Yeah, fear of missing out, right? I do this when I watch TV. Any channel surfers in here? My family hates watching TV with me. Here's why. Because the minute a commercial comes, I'm scouring every channel through the list so that by the time I get back to whatever we were watching, we're 2 minutes back into the episode. They're like, why do you do that? I'm like, what if something better's on? Like, I just have this fear that I'm going to miss a better show or a better episode. And some of us live our lives that way too. And sometimes it's a critical thing. We're like, oh, you shouldn't be that way. Just be in the moment. I actually think that we need to apply a little bit more spiritual FOMO to our pursuit of Jesus. Like this idea within us that is worried that if we are not paying attention to what God is doing and working with him, we could miss what he's doing. I really believe that even right now, there is a uniqueness that God is up to in our world. In all of the challenges and in all of the struggles, and what would be so easy for us to do is to get caught up in the minutia of arguing about those details, frustrated about those details, and miss that God is trying to do something in the details and is inviting us to be a part of it. And I think it would serve us well, those of us who are his followers, to live with a little bit more spiritual FOMO. As a matter of fact, I think God is looking for men and women like that. Men and women that deeply, passionately want to be where he is, want to do what he's doing, want to join his movement, want to be a part of his work in this world. Men and women that are deeply committed to doing whatever they can to reshape human history and its destiny, no matter the risk, no matter the cost, no matter the fear, all for the sake of the kingdom of Jesus. And the scriptures seem to indicate that if we are not observant, we could miss Jesus as he passes on by. I mean, that's this moment right here in Matthew that we're reading, like on this lake and in this boat. This is that moment of choosing to either join Jesus or let him pass by. Here's what happens in the next few verses. Verse 27. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "then tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. And then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. Now, here's a couple of things I want to assume about this passage. A group of guys that are friends don't usually keep their opinions and their thoughts to themselves. Like, we usually have a tendency to call one another out, jab at one another, be sarcastic with one another. And given that nobody else joins Peter in this moment, I'm just going to assume that they're not huge fans of the decision he's making. And so it does make me wonder if they did one of two things. Like, maybe they just kind of sat there and gave him that, "What the heck are you doing?" look. Like, what? Or maybe they even said something. Maybe like, "Hold on, Pete, whoa, 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 whoa. What are you doing? Like, what are you thinking? That's God. We've seen him do some incredible things. Just because he can do it, don't assume that you can do it. Like Pete, maybe you should even let John take the first try. Because we know that you're a little JV, he's kind of varsity, you've got your issues. Let's let John try first, Pete." But the thing that's so incredible about this moment is that nobody else says anything. Nobody else does anything. And I think there's a couple of things that Peter does in this whole moment that are so crucial and critical to him being released to Jesus. And the first is an internal decision that I think we can see that he made over and over again throughout the course of his life, and it was the decision to not stay behind. Think about that moment where Peter's about to step out and walk in the water, and Jesus has been talking to the whole boat. As a matter of fact, let's go back. Let's look at it. Verse 27 makes it very clear that this is not just a personal moment between Jesus and Peter. Verse 27, can we pull that back up? But Jesus immediately said to them, to who? To them, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." He's talking to the whole boat, but Peter's the only one that responded. Like, why didn't somebody else go, "Well, I want to walk on water. What about me? Like, I want to try too." Nobody did. Only Peter was the one that just decided and chose, "I'm not staying back." That means there's a whole boat of people that chose, "We're just going to stay back by you go. And we're just going to be content to be here." It's no wonder to me that Peter goes on throughout the course of his life to accomplish so much and to become so much for the kingdom. Because he regularly makes these decisions like this, not to stay behind. And for all of Peter's issues, and he's got lots of them. We looked a little bit at his life a few weeks ago. This is one thing he consistently does well. He chooses not to stay behind. He chooses instead to step out, while an entire boat of people stay behind. And it makes me wonder, throughout human history, how often has God had moments like this with so many other men and women, where he has literally used them to reshape human history, not because of their talent, but because of their determination not to stay behind. And not staying behind when others might criticize them, being afraid of what others might think, being afraid of others' expectations or opinions, and choosing not to stay behind. How many of them have done incredible things for the kingdom? And not just done more, but become more. Here's what Erwin McManus, the book that we're doing this series off of, says. When you stay where you are, you stay who you are. When you stay where you are, you stay who you are. So here's the second thing that Peter does that I think is maybe the most important thing he does the entire story. So if you're imagining the scene where he's in a boat, I don't know how high the walls of the side of the boat are, but my assumption is that they're not tall enough that he could just stand up and step right over. I'm picturing myself, right? Put yourself in the human moment. Like as you're climbing over the edge of the boat, like there's got to be a moment where you're like, okay, and you grab the edge of the boat and you kind of step down. And like, what do you say, by the way, on this moment right here? Like your feet are on the water and you're not going down. Like, I don't know what comes out of your mouth. Peter was a fisherman. It might not have been good. I don't know, but here he is. His feet are on the water and he's not going down, but he's still holding the boat. And there was a very conscious moment where Peter had to decide to do this and let go and release the boat. And here's what's so powerful. In a moment like that, when you're standing on water and the only option is I'm going to drown or I'm going to stand on it, you're not just releasing a boat. You're releasing your life into absolute, confident, recklessly abandoned trust that that guy out there has got you, and you move towards him. And in this moment, what to other people looked foolish was actually a moment of faith. What looked reckless was actually a moment of resolve. What looked careless was actually a moment of certainty. What looked risky was in fact risky. You cannot follow the water-walking God of creation and not have risk involved when you take that step. When he says, come to me. And that's where some of us freeze. Because we go, I just don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can live with that kind of blind faith. And I would say that's not blind faith at all. Peter was not exhibiting blind faith. His eyes were wide open. His faith was looking at Jesus with absolute confidence that if I move to him, he's got me. I don't know what this is going to be as I walk, but I know him and I know he's got me and I'm moving to him. And with complete reckless abandon of himself, he puts all of who he is, releases all of who he is into the care of Jesus and moves towards him, unconscious, unaware, unconcerned, or all the above with what anybody in the boat thought of that moment. My son is 18 years old. He'll be here for the second service. When he was 11, this will forever be one of my best memories of he and I. You all, if you're a parent, you have moments like this. You have memories like this where it's like, that's the memory. So it was the first time he ever went away on a trip. I was actually, he was with a 4-H group. He went on a canoe trip, or he was away for several days. It was like a big deal, because you're like, oh my gosh, he's never been away from home. They're sleeping on their own. They're out with the whole group, and we don't know. How's he going to do? And then to add to that, I was on a mission trip in Haiti at the time. So I had been gone for several days, and then he left, and then I came back home. And so there'd been, I think it was 10 days easy that we hadn't seen each other, maybe more. And so I'll never forget, all the parents show up at this group, and we're there where the kids are all getting dropped off at this home, and there's probably 40 different kids there, so that you picture the big circle of all these parents, and here's my son and all of his buddies and all of his friends. They just had this cool weekend together, and he didn't know that I was back from Haiti yet, so he didn't know I was picking him up. He had assumed that his mom was, my wife Nicole. And so I'm standing in the circle with all the parents, and I didn't even realize he didn't see me, because he kind of scanned the circle at one point, and I thought he saw me. And then he's getting all of his stuff, and he's like hanging out with his buddies, and they're all laughing. And there was a point where as he looked through, he saw me. And I realized, oh no, he didn't realize I was here until right now. And his eyes immediately just welled up, and he started sobbing, and he bolted towards me. And he just wrapped his arms around my waist and buried his head into my chest. 11 years old. Like, you don't do that in front of your 11-year-old buddies. And he just stayed there for a minute and just cried into my chest as he just said, I didn't know you were home yet. And then that was it. And then he was back with his buddies and packing up his gear. This is that moment with Peter and Jesus, where I think Peter was so focused on Jesus that nothing else mattered to him in that moment, that he was willing and able to step out from those who stayed behind, to let go of what was his comfort, and to completely entrust himself into the care, the purposes, and the kingdom of Jesus. How about us? How about us? I wonder where you're at today. Like, maybe you would say, I'm on the shore, man. I'm not even in the boat. Trying to check this whole thing out. I'm not even sure there is a God. If there is Jesus God? I don't know. I don't even know if I want to be in this boat. And I just want to keep telling you, we created this community for you as a place where you can explore that and where you can, I pray, hopefully at some point find that there is a God. His name is Jesus, and he's nuts about you. But this community is here for you. Or maybe some of you, maybe you're in the boat. And maybe you're just the person that constantly is going, why does it seem like God does so much for everybody else and not for me? Why does it seem like he does incredible things in and incredible things through? And I would say maybe it's because you haven't in your mind and in your heart decided, like Peter, not to stay behind. And I would just say to you, then make 2021 the year where you resolve, I refuse to stay behind any longer. Or maybe some of you, maybe you're where Peter was at the moment he had to choose to let go. Maybe you're kind of still holding on. Like, you're kind of half in, half out. Like, it's kind of Christianity at full draw for you. You know, you're kind of there, but not really ready to entrust everything to Jesus. And you've given some things. I mean, I even go and I serve and I do some things, but you're withholding huge parts of your life that only you know about. Because you just don't know yet if you can really trust him with all of that. And here's the thing, you never will until you do. And the danger of holding on will always be greater than the risk of letting go. And maybe for you, it's time that you truly let go and release yourself completely and fully into the care and the trust, into the mission of Jesus. That's what today is all about. Because it doesn't just happen once. It's a consistent, continual invitation that God makes to us. Release yourself, release yourself. But today we celebrate a group of men and women that made one of the first, most important decisions in that releasing, which is to release into the act of baptism and publicly say, Jesus is mine and I am his. Justin is a friend of mine who I was able to baptize last Saturday. I'm going to have Justin come on up this morning and have him share a bit of his story. So Justin is here representing for all those who got baptized as the one on stage to share a little bit today. So would you give Justin kind of your welcome as he walks up? What's up, dude? So I think you were the first one I baptized last week. And so you were one of the stories that I just thought we were talking, like, I would love to have you share. So go ahead, tell us a little bit of your story.
All right, good morning, everyone. So I chose to get baptized last Saturday, and here's kind of why I did it, and here's my story. So growing up, Jesus wasn't in my life. Both of my parents were forced to go to church when they were younger, and because they were forced to do so, when they left their homes as adults, like so many people do, they just stopped going. They had nothing against going, it just wasn't something that was part of our weekly routine. I had always been interested in going to church, but being from a small town of Sandusky, Michigan, there were about 5 different churches within a 5-mile radius. What one do I even go to? I met my current girlfriend, Hannah, in September 2018. I knew that she grew up in a religious home and was terrified when she asked me if I wanted to go to Kensington one cold December morning. I loved it. The music, the energy, the positivity, the feeling afterwards, it changed my life. I began coming more frequently, and as I continued to go, I felt better about life. My perspective on things around me changed. I can't say that I had completely bought in, though. I didn't go a lot during the summer of 2019 because Hannah moved back home to work, and I felt that I didn't have that person there to hold me accountable. I began attending regularly again, and I could feel the difference it made. Then COVID-19 hit. Although many people had a rough 2020, I personally felt the closest I've ever been to God my entire life. I was reading the Bible more, journaling my thoughts and prayers every night, and even stepped out of my comfort zone by doing the Alpha course, which I would highly recommend if you are considering. Around April 2020, I made the decision in my head that I wanted to get baptized. I was baptized when I was just 2 months old, but I don't remember it, and since I didn't have Jesus in my life growing up, I wanted to formally do it by choice. I wanted the opportunity to shout it out to the world that I was a follower of Jesus. So if there's anything that I hope you take away from my story, it's to go all in. Watch the services regularly, step out of your comfort zone to meet new people who bring you closer to God, and prioritize your relationship with Jesus. We aren't perfect, but that's the beauty with being a follower of His. We aren't expected to be.
That's what today is about. That's what this community is about. And I just want to say to you, 30 years ago, when this place was born out of a dream, you were in mind. Literally, moments like this, people like you were in mind. To come to the place that so many of us have come to, which is to realize God's not chasing us to whoop on us. He's chasing us to love us. There's a God, His name is Jesus, and He is so wildly passionate about every one of us. So thanks for sharing your story. Isn't that awesome? Here is the rest of that day and the rest of those stories. Check it out.
Right now, anything can happen. Right now, everything can change. It is time, cast all your cares upon Him. Right here, right now, no fear. Don't fret, just run into His presence. Just know He's got every single day. Be cleansed in the holy rain of Jesus. Right here, right now, no fear. Just turn your eyes upon Jesus. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Right here, right now, no fear. Right here, right now, no fear.
Baptism is a procession of faith. It's a way to proclaim to people around you, to people in that video, to anyone who cares to know that I've got a Lord and Savior that looks after me.
It's a journey, and you continue. We mess it up, we make mistakes, but we continue to seek Him. Baptism for me was just an extension of that.
I struggle with depression, suicidal thoughts, and self-harm that I felt like I had to have all that cleared out before I got baptized. And it's just been on my heart lately, like a lot. So I realized that I don't have to have that all figured out, that God will be with me every step of the way.
His name is your defender. Be glad and know that He is God. Don't wait, just run into His presence. Right here, right now, no fear. Just turn
couldn't believe. And, you know, the love that I have for Christ, it just carried me through. It was an amazing, amazing experience. And, you know, I just really wanted to show my faith today and show my love for Christ and outwardly. And just, it's been a miracle what's happened in our lives this year.
I was driving home from work and I just felt like the Spirit of Jesus just entered into me. I just felt it. It took my breath away, so much so that I pulled over on the side of 696 and just thanked the Lord and just cried. And I knew then that I had been saved at that very, very moment. And it was just an inspiration to me. And that's why I'm here.
I kind of felt like I had been just going steady with God, and it was time to just really make that commitment so that just like any other marriage that you would have, you don't take things for granted. You do it all in. You do it from the heart. You forgive. You accept. And it was just time to make that 100% all in.
one thing I really haven't surrendered was like that declaration, that public declaration that I wanted to say that I'm baptized, that I'm following Jesus for the rest of my life.
searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. It meant empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. Oh, then you came along and put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Come on, we sing. There's nothing. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better.
just wish our band was a little bit more passionate about what they do. Man. I wonder if some of you are thinking at any point in the morning, the message sounds a lot like the last couple of weeks. Stop living for the seashells, stop chasing the spider, release certain relationships, grab onto others. And I would say, yes, it does. Because to a degree it is. It is this series. Because some of us in our pursuit of Jesus, the truth is, have been holding on all of our experience. We've heard messages like this again and again and again, and we keep choosing to stay behind. We keep choosing to hold on. And I get 5 weeks at the start of this year to implore you, release your life. Release your life. Release your life to Jesus. You will never regret it. It's what you were made for, is to know the one who made you. And you can trust him because he's nuts about you. And it doesn't mean you'll be perfect at it. If you know the rest of the story of Peter, you know it didn't take too many steps before he got distracted, looked at everything else but Jesus, and started to sink. But the same grace that brought him on the waters was the same grace that picked him up from the waters. The same grace that leads us into relationship is the same grace that leads us through relationship with Jesus. It doesn't mean we got to be perfect, but it does mean we got to be courageous and say, I'm going to follow you. I'm going to release myself to you, whatever that means, wherever you take me, because you're my good Father. The book of Matthew, in the concluding chapter, in the last moments, is when Jesus releases his disciples into this world. It's a moment where for 3 years he's been drawing back. I want you to see what happened here really quickly. Verse 16, then the 11 disciples were gathered together at the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. And when they saw him, they worshiped him. Watch this. But some doubted. And then Jesus came to them and said, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me, therefore go. It's a moment of release, of Jesus' release of us, and yet there were still some in that group, some it says that still doubted, that were risking in that moment missing it because of their fear, missing it and potentially going to stay back, missing it because they were holding on. My prayer for us is that as we move into this year, we will be men and women that take the step God puts in front of us to release our lives into all the plans and all the purposes that he has for us. And as we do, may we truly bring a bit of the kingdom as it is in heaven to this earth. We'd love to just care on you and listen to you and pray for you as you walk out these doors this morning. If we can serve you in that way, there's a team of people directly back here where the door is open. You can see the light in the room. That's our people that are here for you. So if we can love on you, pray for you, listen to you, let us do that before you go home. Otherwise, have a fabulous rest of the day, an amazing week, and we'll see you next Sunday to celebrate Brady getting beat. Bye-bye.
Lord.